Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Skylar Fiction Show. I'm, of course, Skylar Fiction. We're back with another episode of Skylar Fiction Reads the Bible with my special guest, my co-host, my confidant, Dr. Josh from the Digital Hammurabi show. You know, I'm super excited to be here. I'm so sorry about last night, guys. I should start by saying that. I was supposed to have Divine Starship on here. No, not Divine Starship. He comes on tomorrow night. I was just talking about Divine Starship. Divine Starship's actually tomorrow night, folks. So tune in. He's a Christian. He says he has a different kind of view on Christianity, which that will be an interesting conversation. We were going to have Paranormal Encyclopedia on last night. And he's a paranormal investigator, demonologist. But we have rescheduled for the following Sunday. So don't worry. He will be on my channel. Tonight's beer, what are we drinking tonight? Tonight I've got Dogfish Head. What's the name of it? A well-hopped IPA brewed with orange peel and lemon fresh. Oh, it's Flesh and Blood. Wow, that's an intense beer name, man. Flesh and Blood. It's kind of like Jesus. It's like I'm drinking Jesus here. This is like the metaphorical, Jesus I'm drinking. Lord Jesus, please bless this.
That would make Megan laugh here in the background.
I appreciate it. I need to make. I feel sad. I keep having you on, and she's part of the Digital Hammurabi channel. She just needs to sit in with you sometime when we do this. Come say hello. Come say hello to the Skylar Fiction Show to the audience here.
She's doing, high-level academic things.
Yes.
I'm playing a video game. Hi, Skylar.
Hey, what video game are you playing?
Yes, I play Chronicles 2.
Chronicles 2. So today was my daughter's birthday, actually, funny enough. So she's not playing video games yet, but my son, the 7-year-old, is unstoppable. Like it's like every video game he wants everything. That's all. Now the Roblox. I got him Destiny. What was a free game for PlayStation? So I give him that. I have to watch because I want to play Fallout, which is super hot, and I can't watch this. I wish I could play this, but things go down. Anyways, that's so off topic. Anyways, nice to see you. You got to sit in more often with these.
I'm not the biblicist, though.
No, that's all right. Dr. Josh, I think we're at that time where I need you to introduce yourself, say hello to the audience, tell them where they can find your channel and all that fun stuff before we start diving into the Bible, which we find exciting here on the Skylar Fiction Show, if nobody else does. Please, Josh, introduce yourself, man.
Well, thank you very much, Skylar, and I really appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I love the audience. And we're actually pushing 900, and it's really all because of this group. So I really appreciate it. Dr. Josh, Digital Hammurabi. I have a PhD in Assyriology from the Johns Hopkins University. I have a master's in theology from Old Testament studies, and I minored in Hebrew Bible in my PhD program. But I would not classify myself as an Old Testament scholar because my PhD is not in Old Testament studies. But I feel like I know enough about it to talk about it. So, on our channel, the big thing that we do is we try to make the ancient Near East come alive and make it easy to understand. We try to take things that are complicated. Actually, I just did a video. I remade a video to make it a little easier to understand on Leviticus 18.
Always a good chapter, Leviticus 18.
Yeah.
It's some good stuff in Leviticus, yeah.
Well, there's a guy from Harvard, Dr. Dershowitz, wrote an article, 2017 article, where he argues that, that's the big Leviticus 18:22, where it says, "Do not lie with a man as with a woman; it's an abomination." He makes actually a very compelling argument that originally the text just said it was just a list of incestual regulations. So, don't have sex with your mother, don't have sex with your sister, but it also said, don't have sex with your father, and don't have sex with your uncle. And if you think about it in that context, with the women, it's you can have sex with women, just not these women. If you have men in there, you can have sex with men, just not these men. And later on, the text was edited in the Persian period, and he demonstrates that, I think, pretty clearly, to read So where it says, sorry, I'm getting a little long-winded.
No, please, more. We love it here on the Skylar Fiction Show.
Where it says, do not uncover the nakedness of your uncle. It says, that is, do not approach his wife.
Oh,
So that second part was added on because it's like what I mean is, don't have sex with his wife.
I should have had you on the other day, but it kind of randomly happened. Like I did an open hangout, and it ended up turning into a whole conversation about homosexuality in the Bible. And we had who was in there? Warning Good People and Jesus' Lord was there. You know, 2 class acts that have been on my channel many times. I'm gonna put a pause to that for a while. Jesus' Lord's gonna take a little break. We gotta make sure we get some new fresh faces, more reasonable faces. What I should say on here. But it was good. We had a couple of was it CRISPR? No, there was somebody in here. I can't remember the other person's
CRISPR.
name. Was it CRISPR, right? Yeah, it was CRISPR. But it was a good hangout. If you guys haven't seen it, you can check it out. And just to make sure everybody knows, Digital Hammurabi's channel is actually in the link of this video, so you can click on it, subscribe. Dude, show the dude some love, man. Yeah, I did have a question for you. What did you say your major was in? Give me the title of your major was in.
It's Assyriology. So essentially ancient Iraq. That's where writing first originated. I don't care what those Egyptologists say. We own first writing. And that area was Sumer and Akkad, but they called that area Assyria. And so then the languages, they called what we now know to be Akkadian. They called that Assyrian. And but so Assyriology is the study of Assyrian language, but now we call it Akkadian. So, but the name is stuck. So
was that like, was that something when you were in high school? You're like, you know what? When I get to college, I'm going to study Assyriology.
No, you know what it was. And actually, if anybody's interested in the long, boring version of this, I have a video up on our channel where it's called from what is it, sweetheart?
Evangelical to agnostic.
Evangelical to agnosticism, an academic's journey. And basically, you know, I wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to be a pastor my whole life. I went to Liberty University to get my bachelor's degree. I went to a very evangelical conservative seminary just outside of Washington, D.C. And I majored, I learned Greek, Koine Greek really well. And then I majored in Hebrew and Aramaic and Ugaritic and all those other things, Syriac. And then
the smart motherfucker right here. So
well,
I'm sorry, I just got to throw that out.
I just don't have anything else to do. You see, when you're that bored, you just can learn all this stuff.
Wasn't Liberty University? Was that where you couldn't have interracial dating?
Yeah, I mean it's Jerry Falwell's school.
What's the? Sorry, no. Finish what you were saying. Then I have a question about that real quick afterwards.
Oh yeah, sure. So basically, I went to one of my professors when I was in seminary, and he was teaching us Akkadian, first semester Akkadian, and because we begged him to teach it to us. And I said, if I want to be the best Old Testament scholar in the world, how do I do it? And he said, the high road would be to learn Akkadian. So that's what I did. I applied to Johns Hopkins. And when I got there, basically my advisor said, you know, I think you're going to do Akkadian, but I think you ought to focus on Sumerian. I was like, heck yes, I will.
So let me ask you that now with Liberty University. Where does that come from? Where do they get this concept? Because that was a rule. You couldn't interracially date was not something you were supposed to be doing, which I think is beyond strange. I mean, I understand it because there's a lot of racism in this country and things like that. But was this a religious perspective at the time?
Yeah, I actually don't know about that rule. So I was in the military when I went to Liberty and I did distance learning. So I was never actually on campus. But it wouldn't in any way surprise me. I know that there was always this logical justification for it. Like, oh, it'll make the lives of the children so much harder.
Oh, yeah.
I remember actually I preached a sermon when I pastored a church out in Virginia for 7 years. And one of my last sermons, I opened with this. It was right at the border of Virginia and West Virginia. And I was talking about how I was driving down the road and there was this big like German Shepherd on what's the car that has a bed like a truck? Chevelle.
Yes, I think that's it, but I don't know. I'm purely just
big,
going to agree with you here and just go with it.
There's this big German Shepherd with its paws sitting, up on the hood, barking, and this scruffy looking guy driving down the road. And I was telling this story, opening the sermon, and I said, and then the car passed me, and I went, makes sense, West Virginia. And like half the crowd booed me, the other half of the crowd like stood up and applauded because they're from Virginia. And I said, it's funny, we don't like it when people think things about us without really knowing us. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And I clicked the clicker, and a picture of President Obama came up. And it just went silent.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember saying, how many of you didn't vote for him because he's black? And you found another reason to justify it. Like, oh yeah, what's his economic? Yeah, I don't like his economic policy. But really, you didn't vote for him because he's African American.
Wow.
And they were like, like people didn't shake my hand when I left. Some of them.
Wow. Holy shit, that's a bomb to drop on some people.
I had fun with that. They needed to hear it.
No, sometimes people need to hear it, man. I think I'm not going to get too into the racial politics.
Yeah.
But for many people out there, you guys know that I am in a interracial family. Got my wife is a woman of color, beautiful, sexy, ebony woman. That has been very, very generous and kind to me in life. If you never dated a black woman, go for it. It's the most amazing thing. All right, let's not go any further than that. And we make beautiful children. I just want to say that. My children are beautiful. You've seen them on camera, folks. You know they're there. Anyways, I'm pouring my other beer here. All right, I think we're right at that moment. I think we're ready to jump in to read some scripture tonight here. We got 27 people watching. I'm now on my second beer. I'm off of work. It's time to have a good time, read a little something. I think we are still in Genesis, still on the Abraham story, which is really, really exciting. I think we'll just get going with that. Someone said, I think it was El Camino is what somebody said.
El Camino. That's right.
Just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Someone says, thank you for acknowledging black. Listen, man, black women, people don't even know, man. You don't even know. You don't know what you're missing. Like, strong black women know what they want. They're smart, intelligent, just hard. I don't even know what to say. Just nothing but positive things to say.
Man, strong women in general.
Just strong women in general. It doesn't have to. Yeah, exactly.
If you don't have a strong, independent wife,
it's so true. People don't realize in life that you need to marry somebody who makes you better.
Yep. Because
if you don't make someone who makes you better, it's a failure, right? People are supposed to challenge you. Oh, I'm not even. I don't like. There's bait. People are throwing bait in the chat over here.
I can't imagine who'd be saying something.
I'm just saying that. I can't.
I guess what I'll say is I wouldn't block my wife in the side chat.
Yes. I'm going to say what somebody said. Fuck it. I'm going to say it because I'm going to do it. And this is the last time I'm going to acknowledge this person. Because I'm out of beer. Jesus' Lord says, strong black women submit.
Wow.
Man, it must be miserable, in that kind of, living that kind of life, right?
He can't be serious.
I think he is. I think that's the sad part. And, it would be funny, though, if that's not really how it is at his house. Like, his wife one who really runs the household. Like, get over here, you little bitch. Go do these little dishes. To him. Like, hey, Zeus, get over here and do these dishes. What the fuck?
What that reminds me? Dude, that reminds me of that movie, Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. Where he says, let me tell you young punk something. I've been down in this hood a long time. I've seen a lot of things. And then his mother comes out, Bartholomew? Yes, mama.
Yes, exactly. He's whipped. I know Jesus is whipped in his personal life. There's no way. His wife probably tells him what to do from the moment he wakes up to the moment he leaves that house, right? Like, he's probably...
Maybe this is his outlet.
Maybe that's it. He's got to. He's got to talk a big game. You know what I find? It's always like anything else. The people who talk the biggest games, it's like when people say they have a big dick, they're like, I got a big dick. It's like, I already automatically know you have a micro penis. Like, as soon as you say that, I'm like, yep, okay. Whenever you have to brag about something, there's a problem. It's like when people when someone claims how smart they are. Like you're like, oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
smart people don't claim to be smart.
If you have to say it, it's not true.
That's absolute right. All right. Let's get this on the road here. All right. So we left off last time in our adventure reading the Bible. We left off at Genesis 16 at Hagar and Ishmael. You know what? God, man, I know we're supposed to get into this, but I just want to say, Josh, I have actually learned so much from doing this, and we've only done a couple episodes. I was talking to some Christian friends at work, and bringing up some of the old Hebrew stories, like talking about how Adam met man, Eve met woman, and just having conversation with friends, and they were blown away. Like they thought it was really interesting. Like it really has shown me a lot of different things that even I, someone who's read the Bible a bunch of times, didn't know or understand.
Well, I really appreciate that.
But this is good. This is what I want. I want my audience too. I want my audience to be prepared for when you have challenges in life, or you have family members or other things that may challenge you, that you're prepared to be able to know Scripture, understand it, and argue back.
Yeah.
Because there's what I would say is sometimes in life, it's not the people who are the happy-go-lucky Christians are just nice and kind and just want to help their fellow man that cause problems, right? But sometimes you get the people who are Christians who want to limit the right of gays. They don't want gays to adopt children. They want to make laws in our government that negatively affect non-believers. And it's important to have this information so you can fight back and bring enlightenment to people, so they see, at least they know what's in the Bible, and then you can go from there. All right. Hagar and Ishmael, Genesis 16. Now, Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar, good old-fashioned slavery, still alive and well at this point. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." So let's stop just for a moment and consider a couple things, right? This slave doesn't seem to have any kind of choice in the situation already, right? We're already the slave is property, right? So she has no choice. It's just hey, we're going to use you in order to try to get a chance. They're already conspiring. These holy people, these people that are righteous before God, are conspiring now to basically have their slave raped. I mean, I'm going to use the word raped. It may be a strong word, but realistically, that slave isn't really in on this decision, right? She's not married to Abram. This is the slave of them. So I think this just needs to be pointed out. It's little things like this that when you read the Bible in church, you may just overlook and not think about. You don't think about the fact that it's referring to a slave. It's referring to property, and you're conspiring to how you're going to have a child by making her have sex with your husband.
And I think one of the things that's frustrating when I talk to people about this sort of thing is, there's this response that, well, that's just how it was back then. And that's true. And there's no question that's how it was back then. But I don't know why that would make it better. And you've pointed this out on any number of occasions, right? People have said to me, well, God is setting boundaries in place to try to make the situation better. The problem is that God doesn't have any problem in the text stipulating very specifically, you can't do this. And the reason you can't do it is because all the nations around you are doing it. So I don't want you to do that. So this idea that he allows things that are bad in our estimation, like slavery, like this forced marriage, forced sexual encounter, that sort of thing, because it was commonplace, because it's what they were used to, they wouldn't have viewed it in such a bad way, really is somewhat irrelevant from a moral standpoint, if in fact you're basing the morality, this objective morality that that they would argue exists in the nature of God, because I just don't think those things go together so easily. So,
I mean, we have Christians really in the chat section right now saying there was nothing wrong with owning people, and there's nothing wrong with it today. Like, that's the kind of stuff that this is what Christianity does to your brain.
it has
Religion.
to. I mean, you're forced into that position, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it happens a lot with Calvinists that I talk to. You know, there's when you drive your stake in the ground, particularly very intelligent Calvinists, when they drive their stake in the ground, they understand the ramifications that come with that, and they just have to own it.
They give it up. Yeah, they give up their own morality. Stuff that they, and here's the funny thing I find, Josh, is I don't think they really feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, I think when they actually, when they say it, it doesn't feel comfortable to them, and it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But they're forced into a situation because they have to make this argument. The Bible's 100% correct.
Yep.
The way I'm interpreting it is 100% correct. So therefore, I'm going to continue out this argumentation, and you atheists, you're just ignorant because you're an atheist.
I mean, it's exactly, it describes precisely how I felt when I was an evangelical.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember a cousin of mine is gay, and she came to church one day, and I'm teaching the Sunday school class out of 1 Corinthians. And I remember that the conversation turned to homosexuality, and I made this strong statement about how homosexuality is wrong. And then I looked at her, and I mean, I just inside fell apart because I'm like, but that's what the text says.
Yeah, it's such awkward. It feels awful to say it.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing where I wasn't preaching at that point, but I had, was in my happy-go-lucky bring everybody to Christ days where I tried to get everybody convinced to be a Christian. And I had brought a friend who was, I think at least bisexual is what I should say. And it just happened to be the night that this guy, this particular preacher in my church was one of these guys who thought you could deconvert from being gay somehow, that the Lord made him straight.
I think there's a cabbage juice that'll do that now.
Yeah. Could you imagine? But imagine it was like the opposite. Like, you could drink some kind of juice and then you were gay somehow. Like someone slips it into your drink. Like, you're at a bar. All of a sudden, you're at a bar and you're like, man, that dude's looking pretty nice over there. Like, I didn't notice him before.
I think there are some drinks that will do that.
Maybe
temporarily, at least.
Like, those calves look pretty nice, right? He really works out,
But his triceps have gone to hell.
Yeah. But I felt bad because I didn't know that's what they were going to talk about that night. I would never have brought her if I had known that was the topic of conversation.
Yep.
And I was almost ready to leave. Like, I was going to be like, hey, we can get out of here. But then I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable and stuff like that. And I felt so bad. And I mean, this preacher had this it was such an interesting story because he had said that, I guess he wasn't married yet. So he was going to gay bars and things like that. And that somehow he was at a phone booth and somebody called that phone booth that he was at. And it was a friend of his that had somehow gotten the number to some phone booth and was like, you should come home and we'll pray this away or something. It was really strange. I wish I could remember the whole story. But I was like, this, at the time I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds real. Like, man, God really wanted to pray away the gay on this one. Like, I'm sorry, God ain't going to make you stop liking dick if you're a guy. I'm sorry, it's just not possible. And if he didn't want you to be gay, he shouldn't have made you that way in the first place. All right, let's keep reading. We're going to get a tangent here. This is one of the biggest things that, to me, especially, I've always been a big defender of people who are gay and gay rights ever since I was younger. I grew up with a lot of friends who were gay, and it just infuriates me the way people treat them. Okay. All right, so we're to the point where Abraham's wife Sarai is trying to position to her husband that we can use the slave and maybe have a baby that way. So Abraham agreed to what Sarai had said. So after Abraham had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, She despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Now, why is that in parentheses? Why is it? Oh, no, that's quoting her. That's okay. So I find it. This is another situation where we blame the women in the Bible, right? Like it on and on it goes to blaming the women for the situation. And I do kind of find it ironic she's blaming him now when she kind of come up with the idea. It's kind of funny. All right, we'll keep going with this. Your slave is in your hands, Abram said. Do with her whatever you think is best. Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. All right, so what's going on here, man? Maybe you could shed a little light here. I don't quite understand. So your slave is in your hands. So Abraham saying that to his wife. Do with her whatever is best. Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her.
It's a patriarchal society, right?
Yeah.
Like we've always talked about, and so she's getting on Abram. Hey, this situation's ultimately your fault, and Abram says, I wash my hands of this, right? The Hebrew phrase here, in your hand, be'adcha, or be'adech, be'adech, is it's in your power, in your control. So basically, have at it. Whatever you want to do. She's your maidservant, and so she deals harshly. I was looking at what the word there. She oppresses. She humbles. Yeah.
There's that word humble again.
Which we all know is a good thing from Wolf Bitten.
Yeah, Wolf Bitten says humbling somebody's a good thing. You gotta humble people sometimes. That's what you gotta do.
And because when you ravish somebody, man, I ravish the ladies.
I go and I humble women every night.
That guy. All right,
so
sorry.
Funny. It's okay.
So and of course, as a servant, she's being treated harshly, and so she runs away.
All right, and it's interesting because I always wonder what she did to mistreat her. I wonder if she was just mean, rude. We can't get those details, obviously, but we can speculate. All right. Oh, okay. And we go to verse 7. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to shore. And she said, Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from? And where are you going? Once again, weird because angels seem to never know where people are or anything. They got to ask the question, but whatever. I know this is storytelling. I'm running away from my mistress, Sarai, she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. Be your slave. The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. This should show you this is about the time period, right? Because that's what was important. Having descendants, having, property, things along that line. It just gives you tells to where would you think, would it be important to God or the angels that people have lots of descendants? No. Does it really make a difference? Probably not. But to people back then, it was important. They wanted a lineage. They wanted to pass people on. And I believe later on, this is what they would say that the Muslims come from, the Arabic people come from this, which we'll get into later on, maybe if it comes up. But I believe I do hear Christians try to argue this sometimes. Not all Christians. All right. The angel of the Lord also said to her, you are pregnant now, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility towards all of his brothers. Now, okay, here's a couple interesting things for me this first, right? So at first, the angel's kind of positioning in a positive way, you'll have lots of descendants, right? But then in the second verse over here, now she's kind of positioning it's going to be kind of shitty, though, because your descendants are going to be, they're going to cause a lot of misery. And what's up with this? He will be a wild donkey of a man. Do you know how that breaks down? Like what that is in Hebrew, what that's referring to, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it here. I mean, it's just what it says. It's like he's it's something that's untamed, like
Untamed,
a,
like a donkey
yeah.
would be like a okay, I get what you're saying. All right, that's what I kind of figured. So basically he'll be a wild man. He won't be tamed. All right. And he will be living in hostility towards all of his brothers. She gave the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. This is why the well was called Beer. Laya Ro. It's still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abraham a son, and Abraham gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar born him Ishmael. All right, we got Ishmael now. Ishmael's in the world. He's had sex with his servant, his slave, and we know that there'll be many descendants. That's chapter 16. Let's see where we go with chapter 17. Any thoughts before we move on? We're going to get the circumcision next chapter. This ought to be fun. But any thoughts before we move to the next chapter there?
No, I mean, I think it's again, I think you're talking about exilic period, people in the Babylonian exile, probably looking back and again just trying to make sense of the people groups that they see, just like they did with Genesis 10, and so trying to set up this lineage where you've got one, and that's where 17 is really going to come in here. Mm-hmm. You've got man attempting to solve the problem of barrenness, right? Abraham's got to have some kids, but and that's what you'd hear about is Abraham trying to solve it on his own, Sarai trying to solve it on her own, and it not only flops, but it actually creates a bad circumstance, right? It makes things harder. It's like sinning in the garden again, in a sense, right? Because now life's going to be harder because you have this people group here that's going to be every man, their hand against every man against them. So life's harder now because Abraham tried to do this on his own. Sarai tried to do it on her instead of just trusting in the Lord. But again, this is all literary motif, right? It's what you would expect. So
I got a question from the audience. Was like, who is the angel of the Lord referred to in here?
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question. Actually, I think he's a guy out in London right now, but
guy living in London.
But
an angel of the Lord.
I wish I were kidding. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of debate. Like if you adopt the theological position, like an evangelical theological position, there have been arguments that this is the Logos. This is Jesus before he was incarnate, like a pre-incarnate Jesus.
Okay.
I think that's reaching way too far. The idea of having an intermediary to speak on behalf of the divine, particularly in this. I mean, you think about the immanence and the transcendence of Yahweh. When he appears to Moses in Exodus 3 at the burning bush, don't come any closer. Take off your sandals. This is holy ground. There's this. It's different than Mesopotamian religious perspective, where the deity is the natural phenomenon, and so there's having an intermediary, I guess is what I'm saying, is I think what would be expected.
All right, fair enough.
I probably didn't answer the question at all. Sorry.
It's all right. It doesn't matter. I think it was good enough. Listen, we don't know. I mean, the problem is it's like one of those things where we it's just not something we can really know. We can speculate. We can use our best judgment based on other scriptures and things like that. But this is once again a couple 1,000-year-old book written by people who had very different cultures and a very little understanding of the world around them. So Well, we go to Genesis 17. My favorite topic, the covenant of circumcision. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. I don't know why he needs to announce himself. You figure like seeing him in front of him would be enough, but whatever, you know.
So
God,
this actually is the title. I wrote my master's thesis on this. It's El Shaddai,
all right.
which is the point of my thesis was to figure out what El Shaddai means. So it's always translated as like God Almighty, or and I come down actually thinking that's probably a pretty decent translation, but there are all kinds of options based on ancient Near Eastern linguistics and comparative analysis. But there are 48 instances of El Shaddai. But this is one of these names of Yahweh, the Lord who sees, the Lord who is powerful.
Yeah, I am who I am. He's Yahweh. Doesn't that translate in Hebrew to I am who I am, or basically?
Yeah, it's difficult, right? So it's Yod He Vav He, which is it looks like it's a preterite form of like a verbal form of to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, having something like I will be what I will be, or I have been what I have been, which is where, you get this in the Greek, ego eimi, I myself am. But it's difficult. It's difficult, honestly, to get to the meaning of Yahweh. What we do know, Jehovah is not a word. It was
Really?
I've got a video about that on Digital Hammurabi on the channel. It's the one I sent you earlier. But Jehovah is a misunderstanding of how the scribes that transmitted the Hebrew text wrote the name Yahweh. So yeah, actually Jehovah's, it's a word in the sense that people have been saying it since the 18th century or something, but
not an actual real Hebrew word.
Yeah, it's mixing, it's putting the consonants of the word Yahweh, the name Yahweh, and the vowels of the word Adonai, which means my Lord or Lord, putting those two things together, because you were supposed to pronounce Adonai when you saw the word Yahweh, because you weren't supposed to say his name. But then they mix those together and you get Yehovah.
What do you think happens when you say his name? Does he like melt away or something? Like I wonder, like what? Like if you
it's like Voldemort probably.
Like
Sorry,
don't say his name 3 times in front of the mirror, or he'll appear and kill you. Remember like the Bloody Mary game? I don't know. I wonder if
Did you ever do that?
Oh, when I was a kid, yeah, like the Bloody Mary. Oh, dude, one time way back in the day, I fucking pranked my friends hardcore. So I put my sister underneath the bathroom, like in like underneath the sink where the towels would be, like a little cabinet. And I was like, go in there, Robin. Oh shit, I give her real name. I should say her name. I put my sister in there, and I was like, hey, go under here. I was like, I'm gonna bring my friends in when we do this, and I'm gonna do the thing. I was like, just make the cabinets open and close, like slam them. Oh my god, they went running out of there like nobody's business. It was hard.
I've got your handbasket here.
Yeah, the blood. I wonder how many people know about Bloody Mary these days. I don't know if that's going to show our age. I don't know if that's even a thing.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of like the movie Candyman. If you know the movie Candyman, I think that movie's kind of based on it.
Yes.
But it was terrible.
Yes, we're old. Thank you for pointing that out.
There we go, guys. Hey, folks, this is what happens. Middle-aged men come to talk about the Bible.
Megan says we're really sexy, though. So
yeah, that too. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're at least sexy and drinking good beers. We're not drinking like Pabst Blue Ribbon right now.
Right?
We got good quality beers while we're sitting there reading the Bible. All right. I want to get into the circumcision. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. That's what the show's about. Doc Josh. All right, where were we at?
Halfway through verse 1.
I think we were, yeah. I'm going to start again, though. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, and I am the God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abraham fell face down, and God said to him, as for me, This is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your new name will be Abraham. For I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant and everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Yeah, man, some big promises going on here, man. God's really kind of hooking Abraham up, it sounds like. You know, he's going to get many nations, get some good land. Kings are to come from this. Yeah, I think Abraham's got a good deal going on here.
Indeed.
So I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Let's see. Then the God said to Abraham, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generation to come. This is my covenant when you and your descendants, for you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. We need to talk about this, right? I want you to imagine, Abraham having to go out and tell his people, like, listen, hey guys, hey everyone over here, I need your attention for just a moment, just for a couple moments here. I talked to God last night. Good conversation, good talk, by the way. But he needs us to do something. Ishmael, you got a knife over there? I need you to grab a knife because we're gonna need to all cut the skins off the tips of our dicks. That's gonna need to happen tonight. Like,
what's that now?
like what? What? Wait, what? I kind of need that. I need that little skin makes it feel good. Like I wonder, like I try to think about this, like this really happened, right? Obviously, I don't think this really happened. Well, I guess to some degree, I mean, people started doing circumcision, so I mean, it happened to some degree. I mean, shit, I'm circumcised, and this is 2,000 years later, So, or not even 2,000, many thousand years later. I'm thinking about the New Testament. So, like, I just think about how people were like, I wonder if they just went with it. Like, I wonder if there was any question. Like, are you sure? Like, did you hear him right? Like, maybe he said to cut our fingernails. Maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe he wanted us to cut our fingernails. Like,
that would be pretty messed up, as if there was like a misunderstanding. He said cuticle.
Can you imagine? It's unbelievable. It cracks me up. Like, like, you figure one person would be like, no, I'm gonna go live with the Egyptians. I'm gonna go check out what the Egyptians got going on there. They got these pyramids built. That seems pretty legit over there. They got some technology going. And you're telling us we need to cut off the tips of our dicks. And then, God, for poor like adults at that time, like it's just like, line up, folks. Like,
well, we see it happen. Later, we have stories later of actually some tricks that are played. And you see the whole men of the city, or the whole men of the town get circumcised as part of an agreement. And while they're all, recovering from it, they're killed. They jump them, and this is all part of a trick. And it's like, so you get to actually see it as it plays out.
I tell you what, man. If I'm not having any more children, I'm done with that. But if I did somehow, let's say we pull a Abraham and Sarah here in my life, and somehow another child is born, I would totally never do circumcision again.
Yeah,
I had to do it with my son, and like at first, I bought into the hype where it was like, oh, there's like medical reasons you need to have like you're less likely to have penile cancer or something like that, or you're like whatever excuses they make for it. It's cleaner is another excuse. But we couldn't do it at the hospital. Well, fucking weird. I should tell this story. It's actually a funny story. So like when we had my son, He had like a little bump on his foot, like a pimple, basically, is like I just described. And basically the nurses were accusing us of having like, did your wife have herpes or some shit like that? I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? First of all, is any person who's ever been pregnant before, you know they run 1,000 tests about everything.
Good
Right?
God.
And they were like, and we were like, this is ridiculous. No, of course not. You guys do tests for this kind of shit, right? And they were like, well, we're gonna keep the baby an extra day, which we had to fucking stay the extra day to do a little test on this fucking bump, basically. And it was the same person that was supposed to do circumcision at that point. And we're like, no, we're gonna wait. We'll just do it out of the hospital. You know, usually you do it within the first 3 days the baby's born. So we like awake like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I think is what it was. And so we went to like a place, like a clinic, doctor, whatever, that did the circumcision. But this time I had to be in the fucking room when that shit went down. And my wife physically had to hold the baby. Like literally the doctor had her help hold the baby down as the circumcision happened. And like I'm in the corner just awkwardly, just like, oh my God, like this is just awful. Like this whole situation is fucked up. I can't believe this shit's going down. Like this is just awful, basically. And it was traumatizing. It was a seriously traumatizing situation. And fuck that. I will never do that shit again. Like there's no good reason you need to do it. Now I understand, Liz, before audience members fucking come in here with their signs and shit and like, well, you know, then these like yes. Sometimes
You won't get into the kingdom of heaven without it. That's
yeah,
the only problem.
well, that's true. Yeah, at least my covenant has been kept as far as Abraham with my family. But you know, I get it. Like sometimes in life later on, people end up having to be circumcised because of complications. Totally get it, understand it. But you know what? I think, you know, people should be able to make that decision for themselves. Sorry, that's just my opinion. Sorry, folks. And I believe, you know, what's funny is I found out later, most of the world is uncircumcised. It's really, from what I understand, like a Jewish and European American kind of thing going on.
Yeah, Megan just said it's an American thing. It's bizarre as fuck.
It is, right?
Sorry, I'm quoting her.
No, it's good. That's what we need Megan for. We need her for these like bizarre as fuck quotes. Like it makes sense. Like someone's got to fucking say it. If Megan's not going to say it, who the fuck's going to say it?
That's right.
You know, Jesus Christ, people, stop circumcising your children. I'm getting all political here. All right. Oh, it's brutal. Like, okay. There's so much to it. He's like, there's so much that goes on in my fucking brain here. Because I'm thinking now, like, back to these conversations. Because some women are weird about it. They're like, oh, it's like an elephant dick, you know, kind of thing. Like, oh, look at the human.
What is it that that Elaine said? Have you ever seen one? You? What'd you think? No face, no personality.
I remember the doctor in the room like talking about we're gonna give it a nice clean dome. What? Like what? You're about to cut the skin. You're about to cut my son's dick open.
We're gonna draw a little smiley face on it, you know, make it really happy.
We want it to be a nice little dome, you know, a real separation, like a mushroom kind of thing, you know. It's bizarre. I think we just, as an American culture, we just got to admit it. We need to just take a moment, step back, be like, this is bizarre. Maybe we need to give this a second thought.
I cannot imagine what is going on in the live chat.
No, you can read some of it. I haven't been as active of reading it. I've been kind of keeping. It's
probably wise.
Well, there's a couple like we have warning in here, warning good people. Jesus is Lord. What's the other dude we were mentioning earlier? That's always in here. I forget the guy's name now. I haven't spoken with.
Island on the News.
No, he's not here. No, I'm surprised he's not here tonight. Actually, trolling the chat. Anyways, let's not worry about that.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep going along. We're gonna keep trucking it, seeing where
something productive.
We're gonna see where this venture goes tonight, right? All right. Then God said to Abraham, "As far as for you, you must keep my covenant, and your descendants after you for generations to come." I mean, this is the part we read.
Yeah,
it is. I think there's circumcision. No, I think we're
on verse 11.
We are in verse 11, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you for the generations to come. Every male among you who is 8 years old must be circumcised. At least God kind of doesn't do it to the babies yet. Fuck, we do that to the babies these days. Like, you think about, like, at least God's like, well, wait till they're 8 at least before they have to go through this traumatizing fucking experience. Like, I think about right now, my son is 7 years old. He turns 8 in November. Like, imagine having to prep him for that. Like, listen, in November, you're going to turn 8. And we're going to have to do something. We don't have any modern medicine where we can numb the area. And possibly the worst feeling you will feel is the needle numbing the area. No. We're just going to need to take out a fucking knife, and a knife that's unsterilized, because we haven't figured out sterilization yet in technology. We don't know about bacteria and everything like that. And we're going to need to cut the skinny dick off.
We're pretty sure there aren't any demons on this knife that'll get into your.
No, yeah, we're pretty sure. We've worked that out. You know, through the animal sacrificing that we've been doing, and praying pretty heavily to God that we're going to be okay with the knife here. All right, sorry. 12. For the generations to come, every male among you is 8 days old. Oh, wait a minute. No, fuck. Did I read that wrong?
8 days, yeah.
Oh, fuck, man. It ain't even 8 years. It's 8 days. Fuck. Sorry, audience, man. I just made a whole joke that was incorrect. I ruined that for everybody. All right. For the generations to come, every male who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner. Oh my God, these poor fucking slaves. These poor slaves are like, I just
goes from bad to worse for them.
Like, this is like, holy shit, I don't want to be involved in your religion. I just needed some food.
It's like, all right, you destroyed my city, you killed everybody, you've taken me captive. All right, this is hell, but you know what? I'm learning to.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, at least Hagar didn't have a dick. You know, Hagar got raped, but she didn't have a dick to have her skin cut off there. I mean, there's no winning. If you're a woman, you're a sex slave. Basically, you're an object, and you're married off. If you're a male, hey, we're gonna circumcise you because we care. I don't know. I guess they care about the slaves too. I guess I'll give them at least credit. At least they care about them a little bit in the sense of God. That's a weird way of saying it, but oh man, poor slaves.
I mean, of course, the whole point of this, and I mean, I'm sure I'm saying things.
Yeah, we should bring this back to what they're actually.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
I think the thing to capitalize on here, at least every time I taught this is what I capitalized on. Genesis 15 is this unconditional covenant, right? It's this covenant that God is making with Abraham, and he's saying, this is me doing this, shown by him performing the ritual himself while Abraham's asleep. And here it's reiterated in the first part of 17, but then in the latter part it says, as for you, what you're going to need to do is everybody's going to be circumcised. And I guess the way that I always thought of this, and again, it's etiological, it's showing why this stuff happens, but or why they do these things, but it's almost like there's a football game the Ravens game is gonna go on this Sunday night. That's God's covenant. The Ravens game is gonna go on. But if you want to go to the Ravens game, that's gonna go on no matter what, you have to buy a ticket. Right. And that's sort of what it is. Like, the covenant's coming, right? There's this everlasting covenant, the land's gonna be given to them. That's his part. It's coming. But if you want to participate, if you want to be a member of that, that group going in, you have to be circumcised. And of course, by circumcising all the members of the household and by the foreigners that come in, you're keeping this household pure, right?
Do guests have to get circumcised if they have some guests from other land? Like, does that happen where they're like, hey, like, listen, I'm in this other culture out there. The Egyptian came by to visit. They're like, game in our house. We're gonna need to go ahead and we can get this out of the way now. That way we can enjoy our weekend together.
We'll stay at the Motel 8. It's okay. It's
and all the things God could have done. Like, you think about, like, you could have just had them like pierce their ears, cutting off their
have a cool handshake.
Yeah, like, if you want to be part of my covenant, know how to do this cool handshake, and we'll be down. As long as you can give that handshake to each other, I'll know you by your handshake. Like, oh, and then like, does God inspect? Like, all right, everybody, drop your pants. I need to see the tips of your dick. I need to see if you're part of my covenant here. So, covenant. Oh, look at you. You got an elephant dick. You're not part of my covenant. You're not getting into the Holy Land. But you over there, yeah, you're bleeding a little bit. You might die from infection. But you know what? You took a chance. Your covenant has been fulfilled. And you will get to be with me in heaven. Amen. Okay.
Preach it, Skylar.
Preach it. The Lord, you hear me? I'm telling you, I need to do an episode where I just preach as a fucking
I agree.
joke. I can get into it, man. You guys don't even know. Especially get a couple drinks in me. I'll get that old like the Lord wants something better for you folks. He's looking in your life, and you know, he's looking deep down, and that's what you got to do is you got to get deep down in the Holy Spirit. You got to get dirty. You got to roll around it in the filth of the dirty spirit, because you know what that Holy Spirit is going to do? It's going to make you clean. You know, and all that dirt, all that pain, all that suffering that you feel because of the flesh, the sin, because of that ungodly life, it's going to go away, because Jesus is going to make you better, because he's the healer. He's better than any Tylenol that you can imagine. You know, you want to pick up a Cooler's light, you need to pick up a Jesus light, because Jesus is the light, and he's the one who's going to save your soul from all those around you.
This is good.
See, I'm telling you, I do this shit for hours, bro. You guys don't even know. Like, I wish you could have seen some of the sermons I did back in the day. I wasn't an official preacher by that point, but they would let me go in front of the church.
That parody that they did on that, I know I keep going back to that Menace to South Central, drinking your juice in the hood movie, but that parody that they did of the church scene where he says, now, every now and again, some of you women folk, you get hot, you get bothered. Yeah. And every now and again, you get a hot and bothered. Well, what I want you to do when you need a little relief, I want you to call me. Call me.
Put the money in the pocket. What was it? That was coming back to America. You remember, like, he's like, I think that is coming to America with Eddie Murphy, where they're in the church scene. They're like, he's like, you gotta dig deep. The Lord wants you to dig deep, because he ain't digging deep. He ain't gonna be able to dig into your soul.
When I see these women, I know there's a God.
No, there's a God above, and he wants me to be happy.
If loving the Lord is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Exactly. Come fill my cup, Jesus. Fill my cup with your beautiful women, because I need these beautiful women in my life. I need to.
Sexual chocolate.
I want to fill them with the Holy Spirit.
Okay, we are going very far afield here, but it's very scholarly far afield. Yes, that's what I know.
We're going to go back to reading the Bible. We're talking about. We need to talk about. All right.
Oh man,
I'm telling you, man,
this is the greatest show on earth.
People need to. You guys got to appreciate. I'm sorry. Like,
I can't imagine what like warning good people is going through right now. He's imploding.
Yeah, this is like, listen, this is the goal of the show, is to have fun, read scripture, get knowledge, and have laughs, guys. So, like, share this shit. Like, people like it, because I can't always get Christians on here. I'd love to have a Christian on here every night. Would love it. I'd love to have them come on and have conversations. It is difficult. It's very, very difficult. But anyways, all right. Where we lost?
13.
13. Thank you. You're keeping track of this. Whenever born in your household or brought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. An uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised. It's kind of redundant, right? Like, to say an uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised, yeah, it kind of goes along with it. In the flesh will be cut from his people. He has broken my covenant. God also said to Abraham, as far as Sarai, your wife, you will no longer call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and he said to himself, Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Okay, let's pause for just a moment here. Let's not forget that people can live to like 800, 900 years old at this point. Let's not forget that, right? So this is one of those moments where you think the Bible's probably being somewhat kind of honest, like the authors at the time, right? Because they're realizing that if someone lived to 90 years old, that's fucking old as hell back then, right? And that like when they make a comment like, hey, how am I going to have a kid at 9 years old? It doesn't make any sense, right? But it would make sense if people could live to 800 years old. And you see what I'm getting at? I don't know if I'm reaching here or stretching, but this is how I kind of look at why this is probably still, once again, all bullshit. Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's, there's no question, in my opinion, whether it's bullshit or not. But yeah, I mean, certainly, we're post-flood. The years are starting to go down. But like I think I pointed out last week or the week before, the ages are still pretty high, relatively speaking, after the flood. Once you get past the patriarchal period, then, of course, we're getting into chronicled history, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, the thing that's stated here is that she's past the childbearing years, right? So, I mean, I don't even remember how much longer he lives after they're born, but it's not like he dies right afterwards, So
no, yeah, because he raises the kid a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
so there's some stuff with the kid. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Interesting one way to describe it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's read that. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. Then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And for Ishmael, I've heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by the time next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up with him. So, what is there just like kind of like Adam meant man, Eve meant woman? Did Isaac mean something in the Hebrew, like the word there?
Yeah, it means like he laughed.
Really?
Yeah, Yitzchak. So like
he laughed just because of like the way Abraham had reacted.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that's
it's like
kind of like a play on like him laughing at the fact that his wife would live 100 years, and God. It's almost like a funny joke, actually. It's kind of clever because you think about it, God's like, hey, you laugh now, but your wife's gonna have a fucking child, and now you're gonna name him after you laughing for 100 years. Am I right on that? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a play. And I mean, you think about the names Yaakov, for example, for Jacob means heel. I mean, it also has an alternate meaning of like supplanter or something. But I mean, it's because, he grabs onto Esau's heel on the way out, and it's like these names are not coincidental. Orpah in the book of Ruth, it means the back of the neck. And Orpah is the one, if you remember the story of Ruth, she's the one that turns and walks away from Naomi. So she shows Naomi the back of her neck. I mean, but Ruth is, clings to Naomi. Anyway, we'll get there. But these names are
a year from now when we get to Ruth. We can't stop laughing and joking about
our 60th birthday. It'll be like,
all right, we finally did it. We did it. Dr. Josh and I finished the Bible. I thought, another random thought just came into my brain as we're talking about this. Like, my thought was like, imagine this is like fucking aliens just playing jokes on human beings. Like, Abraham, wake up. I got a promise for you, but I need you to do something. Right? Like he did
Back
it,
to the Future.
He did it with his son already. They're like, oh man, we totally did it. He thought he was going to kill his son. Holy shit. This guy will do anything. Right? And then like some other guy's like, yeah, but he won't do it again. Like, I bet you if we go to him again, he won't say something. If we tell him something crazy, he won't do it. And they're like, yeah, I got $20 on that. Like, tell him he's got to cut the skin off the top of his dick. Like, they're like, no, and they're all making bets, and he's like, oh, he fucking did it. They did it. Like, that's the kind of shit like my mind goes to.
Yes.
Bible. I don't know if I should have a fourth beer in a minute. This is gonna be. I mean, it's delicious. It's my day off tomorrow. And you know what's great about this, Josh? Let me tell you the best part. Is my wife's gonna bring the kids tomorrow to school in the morning, which means Skylar Fiction. It's to sleep in.
And Skylar Fiction is going to have another beer.
Probably, I'm probably gonna have another beer in a moment.
You should.
But I got to think. You know what, audience? We need to think of a question for Josh while I go to grab my beer here in a moment or two. And I can't keep Josh up too late. I know you have to be up somewhat early.
Oh no, this is worth every moment.
All right. So if you guys have a question for Josh, throw it here in the side chat. I'll try to maybe ask him that when I go to get a beer here in a minute. But let's finish this piece. I'm almost at the end of this chapter. I think we'll get our average about 3 a night. I think is what we usually get about 3 chapters. And then yeah. All right. Okay.
Verse 21.
21. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by the next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael, and all those born in his household are bought with the money, slaves, every man in his household, and circumcised them. Oh God, I'm just visioning this. Line up, folks. We gotta get up all your dicks. All right, let me read that again. On the very, I just wanted to sink in, folks. This is what God wanted, right? This is. I know we joke and we laugh, but this is what God wanted. He wanted Abraham to take all of his slaves, all the people who lived in his household, all of his children, and he wanted them to cut their dicks. Okay, so let's keep going. On the very day Abraham took Ishmael and all those born in his household, all bought with money, every male in the household, and circumcised them, as God had told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13. Oh. Abraham and his son Ishmael were both circumcised on that very day, and every male in Abraham's household, including those born in the household, are bought from a foreigner, was circumcised with him. Which, if when we later on, just you guys have heard me argue this, Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46. These are the kind of slaves you can treat with rigor, the ones bought from foreigners that are mentioned here. This isn't the indentured servitude you would read from Hebrew to Hebrew slavery. This is talking about real deal slaves.
It's really weird how people, particularly that I've interacted with of late, haven't been able to make that distinction in the text. Like,
yeah, it's so clear too. It's like unbelievably clear. Like
in Leviticus 25, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
You know, hey, look, if a fellow Israelite falls into, bad times, you can't treat him like an eved. You can't treat him like a slave. You have to treat him like a sachir. Somebody that you have to pay wages, right? But if as far as your eveds are concerned, your slaves, if you want slaves, got to get them from the foreign nations around you. Now you can beat on them, you can treat them with, I know we use that word rigor, but it's violence. You can treat them with violence. You can pass them on as landed property to your children, but you can't do that to your fellow Israelites.
Yeah, it's so
that's
clear.
The whole point.
There's a reason why they break down the rules for the Hebrew slavery or Hebrew. You really should indentured servitude. That's really what it is. And then it breaks down the rules of actual slavery.
Yep.
As if like it's so. I don't believe it either. Okay, I need another beer, and I need to go and use the restroom. So, did we get any questions here in the side chat? I might have to go up a little bit and read one. But if you have a question, this would be a good time to put it in there because I might just get the next one that comes up. Let's see, which is nope. People just talking about circumcision. Let's see here. Any questions, folks? This is your time. 42 people watching. One of you 42 people have questions. I believe in you. I believe that you will have a question to ask. If not, I'm just going to ask Josh. Let's see. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Okay. I hate to read it from this guy, but I'm going to read you the question. Jesus is Lord.
Oh boy.
As says that Josh promised me he would exegete Ephesians 1 and 1 John 2:19.
I will be very happy to address this question.
Why don't you do that? Put a little context to what Jesus is talking about so the audience understands. And I'll get that beer and be right back.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah. So, what do we call him? Jesus. Jesus is Lord. Now we're having a conversation in the comments section. And the statement came up that I think it was something about those that went out from among us are no longer with us. Anyway, it was about somebody losing their salvation. I think that's where it stemmed from. I don't know. I've been having a lot of conversations. Anyway, so it came back to the statement that, well, Josh, you were never really saved. You were never really sealed with the Holy Spirit. Because look, Ephesians 1:13, sealed unto the day of redemption. So, I feel like I've made this clear in the response, but apparently I haven't. So let me try to do it here. Jill, if you're asking me to argue with you from inside your worldview, I have no interest in doing that. I understand Paul's writings very well. So I don't think that your interpretation of the text is off there, right? I mean, I think that's exactly what Paul's saying. What I'm disagreeing with you on is the validity of the divine inspiration of that text, right? So if you're making my point, I guess, in all of this is I get frustrated is not the right word. I think it's very arrogant of people to say to me, well, I have an interpretation of this text, and my interpretation must be correct, because really my life depends on it. I mean, for all intents and purposes. I'm convinced of my worldview, and so my text says, once saved, always saved, right? So if, I read in the epistles of John that if somebody leaves and goes out, that they were never really among us, never really saved. And if, Paul says in Ephesians 1 that once someone is saved, they're sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise unto the day of redemption. Well, it must be, logically follows that Josh must never have been saved. And I think that the reason that I'm saddened, I think, by that is that it's so myopic, right? I was a Christian, a very devout Christian, for 30 years. And I probably, in a percentile range, I probably have more formal education than, well, a lot of people in theological and biblical linguistics, theological studies and biblical linguistics. And just in ancient Near Eastern studies in general. I mean, there are obviously tons and tons of people that are far more brilliant than I am, no question about it. But I feel like I can hold my own here, and to make a statement that Josh doesn't know enough to know that he believed that Jesus Christ died for his sins, because he knew that he was a sinner because of Adam and the fact that he had imputed sin from Adam, and that there was nothing that he could do to rid himself of that sin nature that he had from birth. He was a sinner, not because he sinned, but because he was a sinner, born of Adam, and that he was on his way to hell because of it, because God is holy and can't dwell with unrighteousness. And yet Jesus Christ died on the cross and rose again the third day, according to 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4, in order to pay the full, complete penalty for my sin. and that I can have eternal life in and through his resurrection. I'm justified by faith, by grace through faith, that not of myself. And it's frustrating to me that I lived according to that for damn near 30 years. And for someone to say to me, Josh, you really didn't believe that, I want to say, fuck you. That's what I want to say. I want to say, fuck you. Because it's an arrogant position that you're taking. Get off of your high horse and think to yourself, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I could learn something. All right, I just let that get to me a little bit. Sorry, Skylar.
No. Listen, you know how I say to my channel, and that's go eat a bag of dicks if you think like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is. It's such the most disingenuous argument ever.
It is.
All right. And what is it, and what does it really do? It just makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Right. It's the only way they can justify it because it doesn't make sense in their head. And
honestly, Jill's not the one that riled me up on that. I actually, like Jill subscribed to our channel. I thought that was really nice, and I mean, I feel like our conversations have been amicable, and I don't harbor any ill, but it's not him. There are people that have said this to me any number of times. Warning good people is one. It is just, maturity wants me to not let those things get under my skin. And 95% of the time it doesn't, but yeah.
Well, I want to get in one more question from the audience.
Sorry, go ahead.
Isabella watches. This is quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quick question for Josh. What are the acceptable dates for the patriarch? I don't know if I'm saying
Patriarchs.
Patriarchs. Yeah, that's what I thought that was. Look up to Lot, please and thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I would argue that the patriarchs are mythical figures.
What's so hold on, for people who don't know what?
Sorry, yes, of course.
Yeah, because I'm not even necessarily familiar with what you're referring to here.
So Abraham.
What's the question?
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And the whole lineage there in Genesis, and I would extend that down through Moses. I guess what I would say is this is a story that was a scholarly consensus at this point. Is that this is a history that's written, an Israelite history that's written. The patriarchal narratives are written relatively late, probably either Neo-Assyrian period or Neo-Babylonian periods, 7th century, 6th century BCE. They're either part of a priestly. Anyway, that's all debated, the finer points of that. But this isn't penned by Moses, is the point. In the 14th century or something. So I would say that, and I'm not an Egyptologist, so I haven't looked into all of the details of the Exodus. There's a good volume that just came out a couple years ago where they did a whole symposium, I think, on a bunch of papers, a whole conference on the Exodus. But nonetheless, I think probably there's some consensus that in Egypt you have some small indications that there were small groups of people from Canaan that were living there. That the Israelite style house matches what they see. And again, I'm going afield here, but there's probably some sort of a memory of a small group of people. Either leaving Egypt, or it's not even a memory at all. It's just something that's made up to give validity. Either of those are absolutely fine with me. But this idea that 2.5 million people waltzed out of Egypt, I just don't think there's anything to support that.
Same person, just kind of. I think it might be a highlight the question a little bit more.
Sure.
That's okay. I need the dates for one of my papers in biblical archaeology. If you could narrow it down between early or middle Bronze Age, it would be helpful.
Like, when is it supposed to be set? Is that the idea? If it's when it's supposed to be, when the author that
I think it's I think that's what I guess what people believe. I guess that's two different things, isn't it?
I mean, look, here's some of the things that we know. The patriarchal narrative. you're probably looking. So if you think about Moses, and again, this is all just assuming the interior validity of this narrative, and I just don't think there are a lot of people that would do that in scholarly circles. But if you do, if Moses is coming out either in 1200, a late date, what I would consider probably to be the normal evangelical date, or the maybe the Kenneth Kitchen date. I think Kenneth Kitchen holds to this, like a 1400, 1440, something like that, date of the Exodus. So then you back up 400 years for the period of the Israelites being in Egypt according to the text. So you're back in somewhere in the early Old Babylonian period, right? So 2000 to 1800 maybe. So I mean, people have argued that Amraphel in Genesis 14 is Hammurabi, which would fit with mid 18th century. But again, I that's what I would say. I just don't think there's enough validity though to even. I think that's probably sufficient.
I think that's good. I think that was some really good questions. Or at least
definitely.
At least from Sabella, it was a good question.
I like Sabella. She's awesome.
No, she's very inquisitive, and I know she's studying this stuff, so it's really good. All right. Where do we want to go? We need to go to the next chapter. We're gonna do the next chapter. I think we're good. We can do one more chapter before bed. Just a shout out to people watching this. Thank you for watching this, man. The reason I do YouTube is because of you guys checking out my channel and the love that you guys have shown me. People have been beyond generous with me, have given me, shown me way more kindness than I deserve. So just thank you for watching and inspiring me to want to keep improving this channel. By the way, you know what? I'm going to say it now because this is the most people that are watching right now. It's been a whole time. I may or may not be having Steven Anderson on my channel soon. But Pastor, so it's in the works. I've got a couple connections. We're hoping this plans out. I think there's a very good possibility that it could happen. So Pastor Steven Anderson, we'll say maybe coming on here soon. Let's hope. All right. So let's go to the next chapter. 18. I think we're right to chapter 18. All right, man. All right. So now we're on chapter 18. Chapter title, The Three Visitors. All right. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre.
As Larry, Curly, and Mo.
Yes, exactly. We should say, fair warning, folks, I am probably destroying these names that I'm pronouncing. Like, read the Bible if you want to read the name for yourself. I am not a Hebrew scholar. I can barely say my own name. Let's be honest here. So please, let's show a little generosity and kindness. Anyways, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great tree of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw three men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get something. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent of Sarah. "Quick," he said, "get this sehez." I don't know what the fuck that word is. We may want to get the sehez of the finest flour. And knead it and bake some bread. What's
woman?
Woman, get in the kitchen to make some food.
What are you doing out of the kitchen?
Yo, we got some special stuff up in this bitch. Come on up. We need some bread. Like, it's, it does, just God bless bread. Can we just get an amen for bread in this world? Like people who don't eat bread, I'm just like, what? Like, what's wrong with you? You allergic to it? Like I get it then. Like then I'm like, all right, you're allergic to it. But if you just don't eat bread, sorry, God, it's too many beers. All right, we're to that point, folks. We're getting there. We're getting there.
It's getting good.
It's getting good. We're gonna finish this chapter though. This should be the goal. I will say though, Josh, fine beer this is. I haven't had a beer this tasty in a long time where I've been like, this is pretty good. I even put it in the glass. I didn't drink it out of the can.
Nice.
So I'm a little bit more what's the word you use?
Sophisticated.
Sophisticated.
There you go.
Skylar Fiction is a sophisticated fellow here. I mean, just look at his sophisticated hat he has on. All right. Where were we at? What verse were we at, Josh?
7.
7. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prep it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them while they ate. He stood near them under a tree. Excuse me. Where is your wife, Sarah? They asked. So fucking Sarah made all this food. Sarah made bread. These guys are eating the bread. The slaves made some food. They got to kill a calf and made some food. And now they're these guys are all enjoying it. Like, where's your wife at? Where's your wife? I guess she's like doing whatever somewhere, raising children, breastfeeding maybe.
Barefoot in the kitchen.
Barefoot in the kitchen, making food for everybody. All right. Where am I at again?
10.
10. Thank you. The real reason we have Dr. Josh on here, not because of
what verse we're on.
His intellectual skills and his wealth of knowledge in multiple languages. It's to help me keep track when I lose place. All right. So number 8. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them while they ate. He stood near them under a tree. Where is your wife Sarah? They asked him. There in the tent, doing nothing, sitting quietly. She's just sitting in the tent. That's what she does. There's no television back then. We just sit in tents, relax. All right, that's not what the scripture says, by the way. So then one said, sorry. Just trying to picture in my head, like I'm seeing like these angels like sitting with Abraham, and like there's just like a tent off in the corner, like a little candle lit inside, so you can kind of see the silhouette of what's going on, and there's just Sarah, like, nothing happening. Like, this is what I do. I make bread. I can convince slaves to have sex with my husband so we can bear children. And then I make bread for people, angels, when they show up here. Then I sit quietly alone by myself because I'm not allowed to talk to the other men. All right. Verse 9. Where is your wife, Sarah? They asked him. There in the tent, he said. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind them. So, wasn't she just in her tent a minute ago? Like, what happened? Like, I swear to God, just a second ago, she was in her tent. Now she's outside of her tent listening to what's going on. So now Sarah's listening in on the conversation, apparently. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old. Yeah, that's been mentioned a couple times at this point. And Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will now have this pleasure? Then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh.
Important part. Good details to add.
God's gonna let you know, like, yo, I heard you. Like, what do you think you think you didn't get by me? Like, I didn't hear you laughing. I already said I was gonna name your son after laughing because your husband laughed the first time when I told him he was gonna have a son. Like, it's pretty.
So it may be that the word laughter is put in here so often because there's some assonance, there's some sound wordplay going on. So Isaac is yitzchak, so it's tzachak is the root of the verb. So every time you see laughter, you have tzachka, you have yitzchak, tatzchak. So it's this very distinct, but this distinct verbal sound comes up over and over again.
It's a lot like saying like when they say the word laugh, like it's like joking, like, or is that like something different to what's going on here? Like,
I think it's just like if you know what it's like. It's early Eminem. That's what it is. All this wordplay, going on.
All right. Yeah, I was like,
did you get his new album?
I did. Well, I listened to it on. I did listen to it. It was. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I got it. Ringer, I think is. I mean, obviously, it's probably gonna be everybody's favorite.
I love Eminem. Like,
yeah.
When I shouldn't tell another story I already have. Like, back in 1999, back when I was riding around in cars with like hydraulics and lowriders. And you guys think I'm bullshitting, but this is totally true. Oh yeah, man! I used to have like my boys and my friends all had like lowrider cars with hydraulics. I grew up in the hood, man. It's not a nice area of town, and we used to hit switches, and stuff like that.
Nice.
But I remember, I don't know how I found it. It was before the major Eminem album released. He had like an EP with like 4 songs on it, 4 or 5 songs. And I was like, I didn't remember. I was listening to our radio station down here. And Marilyn Manson, because I was a fan of Marilyn Manson back then too, had talked. They were asking him a question like, if you ever had to like, do a mix of your music with like rap music, like who would you want to do it with? And he had said, well, there was this guy that was supposed to be like a satanic rapper. And it mentioned the guy's name. He didn't really know much about him. And I was like, dude, I'm going to check that out. Like, what's this Marilyn Manson talking about here? And I went to Virgin Record Store and I went and found this EP of Eminem. I didn't have My Name Is, but I had a couple other songs from the album that would be released later on. And it was fire. Like, I was just like, oh my God, this is like crazy what this guy's rapping about. And I went around to like all these kids in my school. I was like, you got to check this out. You got to see what this Eminem's all about. And yeah, man, no, but dude, music's arguably one of the best rappers of all time. Arguably. I mean, there's some good, everyone wants to talk about Tupac and Biggie and stuff like that. In the height of the 90s, I mean, dude, Tupac's Machiavelli album. I remember a senior year party in my high school. Like, let's just say there were some blunts rolling around and there was lots of drinking going on. And I can remember like Hail Mary coming on the radio and people lost it. Like, it was just so much fun. But totally way off topic from our Bible study and these stories that come from Skylar Fiction's life. What the fuck? Where were we at? All right,
I derailed at that time.
No, it's okay. Look, listen. Somehow I ended up telling an Eminem story, so I can't blame you too much as far as that goes.
I was commenting on the word laughter and how it's probably some sort of a wordplay. That
is right.
Which might explain why the funny verse seems to be in there. Like, I didn't laugh. Yeah, you did laugh. But anyway.
And then they named their kid after laughing, which is funny. All right.
16.
16. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Abraham pleads for Sodom. Oh, man. We really getting into this? Oh, yeah, we are getting into this. Okay, good. We're in the right kind of mood to talk about this right now. So, Abraham pleads for Sodom. When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom. And Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, you know what the fuck we'd even talk about? Who are these men? So we're doing all, like, you know what it is both of us are like, oh, we assume these are like angels or something like that. And I forget we have an audience. He was like, who are these three men we're talking about here? So let's talk about what these men are.
Yeah, I mean, good question. This is again, the angel of the Lord and what that means. Of course, it's been argued that this is like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I think you can safely discount that. This, if you look at, first of all, you have to take into account the editorial history and redaction history of this book, right? So, trying to nail down precisely the origin of a particular aspect of a particular part of the story it's just very difficult to do in and of itself. You have in the biblical text this divine counsel ideas of Genesis 1, let us make man in our own image. In the book of Job, you have similar language. It's not easy, and I wouldn't say that I know. These are divine beings. They certainly represent the Lord. And of course, they're referred to here as Yahweh.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably subtle interplay between them. But more than that.
And he recognizes them right away. Like in the story, you notice, like Abraham's like already knows who they are at the moment. That's why he bows down to them. And he starts getting like the best calf and tells his wife to make bread and to get out of the tent and into the kitchen, So like it's interesting, to say the least. So we'll start from there again. 16. When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all the nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him, and keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. So the Lord will bring about Abraham what he has promised.
Weird thing for the Lord to be saying to essentially himself, right? I mean, this is clearly something that's put in the text. Very theologically motivated statement. Abraham's the good guy, and that's what the text is trying to relate. It's making a theological point.
Well, and he's like, should I tell him what I'm about to do? Like he's like debating with himself. Like this is God. Like he's debating with is it God debating with these three characters debating with each other? Is it God debating with the Holy Spirit? Like it's really weird.
Yes.
Like this whole but this is where and this is why Christians just make this fatal mistake over and over, and you take this shit literally. Like it's supposed to be more of a story, like what would you say, a literal story? Not a literal story,
mythological text.
Mythological text, where they're talking in third person, basically. Like, what do we do as God? Like, what is it we shall do for our human beings? Should I warn him about this atrocity or this terribleness that's about to happen on Sodom?
I mean, the fact that God has to come down to see what they're doing, repeatedly, I mean, should be a clue.
What's going on? Yeah, All right. So then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as they outcry. Then he reached me. If not, I will know. So
I don't know yet, but
God doesn't know yet. Like this straight up, God, this is one of those scriptures I need to keep and save. Like this is one of those things I should have brought up 100 times before when talking with theists. Like you're saying God knows the future, but what the hell is going on here?
Oh, I'm sure Gleason Archer has a great explanation for it somewhere. It's the guy they always go to.
They're probably like, he was just speaking, he was just saying things and it wasn't really what he meant. That's basically the only kind of argument you could make against it.
Oh, sorry. I just as a side note here,
please.
Completely off topic, but one of your live streams that you did, the topic of Tyre and the siege of Tyre came up, the city of Tyre and Ezekiel's prophecy.
Oh, that was the one where that was when Jesus' Lord was saying this was a prophecy that could happen. Yeah. What about it?
I mean, absolutely no question failed prophecy. And it's not just one failed prophecy in Ezekiel. Tyre's the big one, right? But even, I mean, if you look 2 chapters later, Nebuchadnezzar, Ezekiel says Nebuchadnezzar failed, right? Every head was bald, every shoulder was worn down, because they laid siege to the city of Tyre and couldn't take it, right? And so the Lord's going to give him Egypt as a spoil. That prophecy fails, even though Ezekiel dies before he realizes that Nebuchadnezzar doesn't take it. But I mean, it's like, and there are so many prophecies against Ammon, and anyway, no question. And this argument again that sorry, I just want to get these things off.
No, please.
Because I heard it on the way into work and went, oh man. This idea that nations, he will bring up nations, the Lord will bring up nations. And so it's like this subtle hint of a prophecy that actually is talking about Alexander. The way that Nebuchadnezzar is depicted in that text as bringing all of these different people groups up, these hordes essentially against Tyre. It's not referring to Alexander. And the reason that, I mean, one of many reasons that this is the fact that Ezekiel has to come back and make the second prophecy and say, well, they didn't actually take Tyre. Well, he's going to give him, maybe you know what he's going to give him? Egypt, though, as his recompense. So, yeah.
It's
anyway, I just wanted to.
No. We need. That's what this show's for. That's what we're here for. We're here to correct when theists make terrible assertions that aren't backed up even by their own scripture, right? Like, you don't do any kind of like anything crazy. You just got to look at scripture and see the context and see where they're wrong. All right. We're on verse 20. Yes. Well, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and the sin so grievous that I will go down and see what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. Then the men turned away and went toward Sodom. But Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous and the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked. Treating the righteous and the wicked alike, far be it with you. We will not judge all the earth, do right. The Lord said, I find 50, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Now, I just want to point out something very, very clear. Why this, if you were to take this literally, would make no sense. There are children and babies in this city. This is a city full of people. Unless you're going to not call a baby righteous, that's the only argument you have. But think about this, right? Because what Christians will do is they'll use this idea of righteous is in the sense of like their righteous belief in God, right? Not necessarily the sin that they were committing, but they were righteous in the sense that they were faithful to God. They in the sense that they believed in God. But think about what Jesus said. Jesus said that if you don't have the faith of a child, you'll never get into the kingdom of heaven, right? So there's no reason, even if I take that definition of righteous, to think that why children wouldn't be righteous before the Lord. So God basically has this, and we're going to keep reading this whole argument. We're going to go down to like one person being righteous or two people being righteous. And he's going to say that basically children and babies aren't righteous. And, you know, they're going to get what they get when we destroy the city. So let's keep going. What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing. Kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I had 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for the sake Then Abraham spoke again. He's like, now that I have been so bold as to speak the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 50 people? If I find 43, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again, he spoke to him, and what if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of the 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord be angry. May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30? 30 could be found here. He answered, I will do it. If I will not do it, if I find 30. Abraham said, now that I have been so bold and speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He says, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry. But let me just speak one more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home.
And I think actually this is why this isn't peer reviewed or anything. It may be. I don't know it.
Throw it out there.
But I think I've heard somewhere that a Jewish synagogue, that's why 10 are required to start a Jewish synagogue because of this story. You have to have 10 righteous men in the city. But that one, don't quote me on.
No,
I try not to say things you can't quote me on, but
no, it's all right. Like I just look at this story, and this is an argument I've used before with other theists. Is like, what do you mean by righteous, right? Like when you talk about what is righteous, what does that mean? This is when you and two. I think there's a bigger hypocrisy here, right? Because Christians will argue that everybody sins, and that all have fallen short of the glory of God. And what makes Sodom and Gomorrah any worse than any other city? Right? That's a good question for you, because I constantly hear this argument, and I don't really have anything to go against it because I haven't studied the cultures and the history of those time periods. Is they'll argue that these were like the worst cultures. Like they were raping children, they were eating babies, they were doing all kinds of things. Where are they getting this from? Is there any truth to it? What's going on here?
I mean, so I think to answer the question, you have to ask, what is the text doing, right? So you're talking about a relatively late text in the first millennium, trying to write about cultures ostensibly from 700-800 years earlier, right? And what the text is doing is trying to give justification for why they should go in and take the land, right? Why is it theirs? And then, of course, why are they thrown off of it? Because they've been exiled. So, you don't want to be going in your story and annihilating people that live on the land that aren't really, really bad people, right? So you're going to cast them in the worst possible light. No, I mean, we know the Canaanites from, the Amarna period, this, second half of the second millennium. Mm-hmm. We know them. We have letters from them. They're all, so Canaan during like the 14th, 13th century, this is called the period of the Great Powers Club. You've got Egypt, you've got Hatti, Mitanni, Assyria, Babylonia. And then these are the major powers, right? And there are others off to the west, but they're writing letters to each other. We have them. Like I could show them to you, the clay tablets. And these kings are writing to each other, and they're writing things like, "Hey, next time you write, send me more gold. You're supposed to send a better gift of gold. Remember the gold that I sent to you? It was much better than this one." Or, hey, I was sick last week and you didn't come visit me. It's like a month and a half journey to get there, but you didn't come visit me last week. So these kings, it's part of this international diplomacy. And if anybody in the audience wants to read about this, we have a video up, a daily data video up about it, but I can give you resources. Actually, it's probably in the video's description on the daily data, but it's called International Diplomacy, I think is the name of the video. But but in the point is in Canaan, in the land there along the Mediterranean coast, you have all these smaller kingdoms that are subservient. Sometimes they're subservient to Egypt, sometimes they're subservient to Hatti in the north. But we've got letters from them, right? So it's not like we have the anyway. They're not like these mystery people, right? I'm not saying that we know everything about them, but
Sure.
I mean we know some things about them, and I think in order to answer the question, you have to ask, what is the text that I'm using as my historical source? What is it doing? And if I can understand what it's doing, it will illuminate, I think, to a very high degree, how much credence, I suppose, how much I can really trust the source and what it's saying about the people, because that's what they're doing. They're wicked people that need to be destroyed. That's why we went in and did it.
Well, and people think, you got to remember too, what I always tell people to remember is like bad things happen in every city you're in. Right now, I'm sure like in those times, there's probably even more extreme the kind of bad things we would imagine in cities right now. But like in order for a city to function, though, like there would have to be some level of normality.
Yeah,
right. Like
there definitely was.
Like it's not like everybody's sacrificing babies in the city. Did babies probably get sacrificed? Sure. Yeah, there's no doubt. Probably in cities like that. Yeah.
There's a book on child sacrifice, actually by a friend of mine from Hopkins, Heath Durrell, Dr. Durrell. I can probably get the link if somebody reminds me to the book, but it was his dissertation topic. He wrote it maybe 6 years ago, but it was like it's child sacrifice in the ancient Near East. So he goes into all the evidence. I think it's in the ancient Near East. It might just be in Israel, but I don't think so. I think it's in the ancient Near East.
It's such a crazy concept to me that like there were people at some point that like somehow psychologically were like okay with it.
Yeah.
Right. Like just they got to a point, or whether they were taught it or like to have that. I don't know if it was like their own babies, or it was like maybe that was probably what it was probably more likely. It's probably people sacrificing other people's babies. I don't know. Like I couldn't even imagine how a parent could do that to their own children. Couldn't imagine to begin with. But it's a crazy. It's such an interesting thing in human history. Some of the stuff that we've done as human beings, and I think a lot of times too. And we're going to be wrapping this up here in a couple of minutes. We've now finished. We read the whole chapter, right? Yeah, we did. So we've now finished 3 chapters today. I'm pretty proud. I got to go back. Like I said, I got a list. Make sure I put in the description what chapters we read each time. That way I get that people want to like go back and watch and figure out which ones. But anyways, but you think about human existence and like the stuff that we as human beings have done is so bizarre. Like look at Vlad the Impaler. Like look at that guy in history. That dude perfected an art, like the art form of basically shoving a metal rod or spear through someone's ass all the way up through their body to where they would live and not die for a couple of days. Right? Like that's the insanity of human beings, what we've done. And when you look at like stuff like this, to child sacrificing, that you've got to remember as a society that like sometimes I think we can forget what we're capable of doing, because like we think we're so evolved. Like we have all this technology now, social media and like electronics, and we know so much more. But like the dangers of what we can do as a human race is very, very large, what we could do. I think we sometimes forget that. But anyways, I've had too many beers. I think I need to stop because I'm going to start spouting nonsense. Anyways, what do we got going? Tomorrow we've got, is it Divine Starship? I got the name right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Divine Starship will be on here. I think at 9 o'clock is what we're doing it tomorrow. If not, I'll set a video up so you guys will be able to see. That should be happening. Possible other exciting guests in the future. We'll see what happens. Thank you for watching. Dr. Josh, you know I love you. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
As always. Subscribe to his channel is linked in the description. Show me some love, folks. Thumbs up the video. Share it out. Let people know about me. That's how this channel is going to grow. And that's how I get better, like, theists on here, Christians that you really want to see me challenge. Because if there's more views and more shares and more likes, they're more likely to come on here. So I know you guys want to see that stuff. So help a brother out. If you really love me, there's a Patreon account. You can also donate. If not, it doesn't matter. Just share, like the video. I think that's it. Until next time, subscribe, make the world a better place.